As Oversight Chair James Comer continues the witch hunt against President Joe Biden and his son Hunter, a review conducted by the Daily Beast of dozens of tax, real estate, and business filings in Kentucky and Tennessee of James Comer's shell company that he argues is not a shell company. It's revealed some interesting findings. Now, it turns out Comer's company, Farm Team Properties LLC, had actually been dissolved by the state of Kentucky twice for failure to file annual reports in 2020 and then in 2022. So if you don't file those reports, the government can come in and go,
bing, 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 boom, it's gone.
To your company. That's it. And then you have to, of course, file to get it back to an acting company. So basically it's administratively dissolved. And there are things that an administratively dissolved business can't do. In fact, they can't legally conduct business in the state. So things like executing deals, leases, securing loans, and even collecting rent as an LLC, you are barred from doing if you're administratively dissolved. Okay? They're only allowed to finish any business necessary in order to liquidate its business and affairs. So that said, Comer had been telling Fox Business that Farm Team Properties not only has held properties, but also manages them, leasing hunting on his 1,600 acres of farmland, which generates lots of revenue, legitimate revenue. Oh yeah, totally legitimate revenue, unlike Hunter Biden. Now, this comes after a month after he denied even having an LLC during a committee hearing. He's like, I don't have an LLC. Oh, really? You don't have an LLC? What about Farm Team Properties? Later on, we find out, yes, he does. And then he admitted, but don't worry. It's legitimate revenue, everybody. And totally not a shell company. Spoiler alert, it's a shell company. So, now, more details here. On personal financial disclosure starting from 2017, the year Comer's wife created Farm Team Properties, and continuing through his most recent statement covering 2022, Comer has listed no income from the property. So wait a minute, he said he was making legitimate revenue, but no income? Well, that's weird. That's very strange. House ethic rules also clearly state that members who do own an interest in partnership or limited liability company established for the purpose of holding real estate must describe each individual property held by the company and must disclose each asset held by the company in which your interest or that of your spouse or dependent child, so, created by Mrs. Comer, had a period end value of more than $1,000 or had recorded more than $200 in income during the reporting period. So he said he'd been making a lot of money from these properties, from leasing out these hunting properties for quite a bit of money, and yet hasn't been reported. Experts have said that Comer's reports on rental income appear to only show net income, not gross, which would violate certain reporting requirements. There's other things here that don't add up. For example, he overstated what he actually owned. So he claimed to Fox News that his company actually managed 5 properties. But according to the documents, he only manages 2 companies. Now, either he is mistaken because he owns properties directly, or has another shell company, or he's just flat out lying. And I'm not saying that, that he's entirely lying. I'm not saying that he doesn't own the property, because he does own a lot of properties outside of this. And so maybe got him confused, and I'm being incredibly charitable here. That said, his disclosures are saying things that are different than what he's been saying in public. And that's an issue. But let's get to the shell company, right? So now they found that Farm Team 1's commercial property is actually co-owned with a Comer campaign donor named Devin Cleary. Cleary has given about $70,000 to Comer's political efforts, according to the report. So how this fits in is that this might have been created as a shell company, or eventually became a shell company, because in 2017 they did manage some properties, right? And were doing things in a more legitimate way, but then decided to use this company to mask the fact that he co-owned this company with a campaign donor. That would mean that it's a shell company. If your company is used to mask your other business activities, such as co-owners, then yeah, that would be a shell company. Generally, that's what people think of when they think of shell companies, in order to hide something. Now, that's an accusation that Comer has thrown out quite a bit about Hunter Biden's businesses, except that they don't have any evidence to back that up. According to the Washington Post, an analysis of Biden's business holdings, they were actually not shell companies. They were real companies with active websites and real business functions. Comer's company doesn't have it. Farm Team doesn't actually have any presence online or anywhere else aside from its land and business filings, which are very, very opaque. We can't see the details or a lot of the details of Farm Team, holdings. So we don't know. So I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. You can read the entire report. There's a lot in it. It's very, very detailed. But basically, to break it down, Comer lied about having an LLC. Turns out he does. But it's not a shell company, except that it actually kind of is a shell company, which was hiding a relationship with a big donor. And that it had been shut down twice for lack of transparency. And while it was shut down, it may or may not have been actually doing business, which under state law, it's not allowed to do. So you've got a lot of issues here. There are a lot of questions for James Comer. Perhaps we should be doing an investigation into him in this business. Seems pretty fair. From somebody who, again, is throwing accusations around of shell companies and shady business practices, but you might want to look in your own house. Once again, the situation seems to prove the old adage right, that every accusation is a confession.